but I was going to become like full on anti-vax, or not anti-vax. Got that? I'm not anti-vax. I said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Anti-mask, full on anti-mask. As soon as we got below 1 million vaccinations per day, because I was going to say at that point, like people are just being too hesitant, and like you should have had it by then, right? I still think that.
And we're recording. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 22 of the Winston Boys podcast, exploring wealth, science, and wisdom through philosophical debates. My name is Kush.
And my name is Alex. And today we're going to be talking about a few kind of different disparate ideas here. And we're going to be talking a little bit about kind of the big reopening of society, right? The end of the pandemic, at least as far as vaccinated people go, right? Where Joe Biden just kind of, I mean, not Joe Biden specifically, but the CDC pretty much just announced out of nowhere that, okay, if you are vaccinated, you can take off your mask. That's it. And, what does that mean? Are they right to do that? Will it cost more lives? Stuff like that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Israel-Palestine conflict, which is a really unfortunate situation right now. I'm sure most of you know about it, but, there's a lot of tension right now between the Jewish and Palestinian ethnic groups in the region of Israel. I see the region because there are different territorial kind of divisions, so that a lot of the Palestinian population is in certain pockets and a lot of the Jewish population is in certain pockets, which is a bit silly, honestly. But anyway, and we're going to talk about who has the right to the land, whose claim. I guess. Oh my God, there's a hornet in here. What the hell is that? That's okay. I just
that's always the worst.
To fly in front of my face. No, it doesn't. It's not like frightening to me. It's just really funny. Okay, you just don't see a hornet in the philosophy library every day. Big old fella. Anyway, back to the issues at hand here. Can Israelis and Palestinians coexist? What would have to take place for that to occur? Things like that. And how could such an arrangement, how would such an arrangement be reached in a way that's better than it is right now? Because right now, I think that arrangement is pretty much generally agreed to be bad by most people and unfair to Palestinians. Anyway, yeah, so we don't have to wear masks anymore.
Yeah, we played that's so like last night we had one of my roommates is graduating, so we had like his family over, and then afterwards we hung out and stuff. So made sure to play Mask Off by Future. Been waiting to do that for like a year and a half.
I feel that, dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm super happy. Wake still makes us wear masks everywhere, which gets on my nerves a little bit. But I mean, I guess it's fine. It's kind of over, And I doubt they'll hold out for long. They'll probably keep it up for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that people oftentimes underestimate how important it is to see other people's faces. I really have a hard time hearing people when they have a mask on. I don't like communicating with people with masks on because it's I can't tell what they're feeling or thinking or anything else. I don't know. It's we have these brains that are really highly evolved to look at someone else's face and tell us what they're thinking, what their intentions are, what their emotions are, et cetera, et cetera. And just covering up that part of the face really takes a lot away from the, interpersonal interactions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
So people are always it's not that bad to wear a mask. And you need to wear a mask when it's time to wear a mask, right? If you're unvaccinated, you still need to be wearing a mask. Go get vaccinated. You twerp. But, at the same time, if you don't need to wear a mask, I do not want to wear a mask under any circumstances. You know what I mean? No, it needs to be a vital thing for me, right? I don't like doing it. It's unpleasant.
I think you gave a take a couple weeks ago. They gave it on the news. Honestly, I really agreed with it. But I think the whole idea is that I don't care anymore, right? The number of people getting vaccinated every day, I think, I don't know what it is now. It's a 2 million, 1 million, whatever.
1 million, I think, on average. Last time I checked.
This is all people who are on the fence now getting vaccinated. Everyone lives within what is it? Like 84% of Americans live within 5 minutes or 5 miles or something of a vaccine.
Right.
to be totally honest with you, like everyone's had the opportunity at this point. Like either you got it and you're protected or you didn't. And like it was a choice. It wasn't because you didn't have access to it. So at this point, like I feel like the mask stuff, at least for me, like it made sense for a while, but now that even the government's saying that, hey, everyone has had enough of a chance, it's like, all right, there's it's the point where like, you know, everyone had
Yeah.
their chance. Whoever cared. Whoever didn't. I don't care about
Right. No, I
about that
totally agree with
anymore.
you. And like, I'm glad we're not doing some sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of inherently opposed to some sort of card system, right? Where like, oh, I have a vaccine, let me in, like, I think that's just wrong. Um, if someone wants to not wear a mask and go out in a crowded place and they get COVID and they die of COVID, like, okay, you shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it was your
But I think
choice, you know.
it's your choice, right? And like, we're giving people the choice. This is not a country that's like, okay, we're going to protect you at the cost of your own freedom. This is a country that's like, okay, you look, when we need to all chip in and protect each other, we should, but we've gotten to the point that we don't need to do that anymore, right? And
Yeah,
sure, it's the heat problem. There's the famous philosophy problem, right? Where it's like you keep adding one grain of sand on top of another, eventually you get a heap, right? But at what point does it become a heap, right? Instead of just a few grains of sand, right? And it's a bit of a silly problem, right? But of course, the point is you have to pick some point to make the change, right? 101 grains of sand is a heap, and 99 is a pile, right, or whatever. Like, a few grains of sand, right? Like, we've passed the point where it's like, okay, we're just gonna call it a heap now because the point's here somewhere, and we just need to pick a point. You know what I mean? There's no threshold. Personally, I think I would have held out a little bit longer, just because, like, you could end up with. I was gonna say like 1 million a day would be a really good benchmark, right? I like my personal view was, and I told some of my friends this. I don't know if I told you this, but I was gonna become like full on anti-vax, or not anti-vax. Got that? I'm not anti-vax. I said the wrong thing.
yeah.
Anti-mask, full on anti-mask. As soon as we got below 1 million vaccinations per day, because I was gonna say at that point, like people are just being too hesitant, and like you should have had it by then, right? I still think there are people who maybe have made a good faith effort and haven't been able to get an appointment or whatever, right? Or maybe they were just slow and not paying attention to it, and they're like, okay, it's time to get it now.
Yeah.
But like, so
Dude,
I think
that's the
maybe another
oh,
month
so
would have been good. I don't know. It's hard to
yeah.
say.
That's the other thing too though. Like have you seen like I mean like okay, I'll just put this out there first. Have you seen like all the news that came out about like the people collecting unemployment and all that stuff? Like
No.
we have like there's like jobs that aren't being filled because the
Yeah.
benefits that people are getting from not working are so good
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
they're not going to work. And
Also,
it's
I mean,
becoming a problem now. It's like it's like killing small businesses.
yeah. So my solution to that is pay people a living wage, which is what I've been saying the whole time. You
Yeah,
should
but
be able
I
to
mean that
support yourself.
inflates.
Here's what I think: two parents should be able to support two kids as a lower middle class family on 40 hours a week at a minimum wage job. That's my radical proposal for you. As in, they make
Yeah.
40 grand a year, right? Working full time for two people. That's all
Yeah,
I'm
but
asking.
but if that becomes the minimum, it's just gonna inflate like
That's not
the
true. That's
whole.
not true. That's
That's
what
how
people
it
always
works.
say, but no, it's not. No, it's
No,
not.
it happens. It happens. Where do you think all the inflation comes from? Like, why do you think
That's
people
not
invented
what inflation comes from.
cryptocurrencies?
Because you don't like what
That's
you
the
don't realize is that the vast majority of income spent is not those people. If you look at a graph, like by the percentage of like wealth in America, like the bottom 20% only have like 5 or 6% of the wealth, or 4% of the wealth, or something. Like they don't have any money. Like
mhm.
what you're telling me is this little tiny piece, right? This little tiny layer on the bottom, right, where they have way less money than everyone else. All right, they have way less than their fair share, and they're somehow gonna vastly change the whole economy with their if we change their percentage from 4% to 8%, right, or 4% to 6% or whatever, right? Like instead of having a fifth of their share of the money, right, they end up having a quarter or a third of their share of the money. Like it's just gonna destroy the American economy. I
Well,
don't believe that.
so
Come on.
we it's pretty reasonable. Like usually when you assume
Because I'm still going
inflation
to be
over time,
hang on, because I'm still going to pay the same price, right? My family's still going to pay the same price
okay,
for bread or for
that's
houses,
fine.
whatever.
But here's the thing. If so, usually when you're figuring out how you want to invest your money, like if I want to invest in the stock market, what's it going to do over 40
Mhm.
years, whatever. Usually you assume about 4% inflation per year.
Hmm.
because of all of the money we've been giving out for COVID, largely to this bottom 4% that you're talking about, we had 4% inflation in the first quarter this year. So inflation
Mm.
is very real. This is where it comes from. There's no magic silver bullet solution to these societal problems. They have to be solved in a value creation mindset, in the mindset that we're playing a positive sum game.
No, I
It
agree.
can't
Yeah.
just be solved by let's magically set a higher minimum wage, let's print more money, let's do this, that.
No, 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 no,
These
not printing
magical
money. Yeah.
solutions don't solve this problem. It has to be solved. The solution is going to be a lot more complicated. That's all I'm saying. Like I don't
Right,
think
but I think a
minimum
lot of
wage.
the inflation here is coming from the fact that we're getting this redistribution of wealth right now. It's not a redistribution of wealth; it's just a creation of wealth. You know what I mean? Which is why there's inflation, right? I mean, they're just printing money and handing it out to the poor people. But
Yeah,
like,
which doesn't work. That
right, that doesn't
isn't
work.
in,
Like, you need to take
yeah.
money off the top and put it in the bottom, not just not just make money and put it in the bottom. Like, that's, you're just blowing hot air at that point, right? And that's the problem right now. And I agree with that. What I'm saying is, like, you know, what was it I read about today? Chase Investment Banking or whatever got a um, $30 billion bailout or something, and turned around and gave their CEO, right, like $100 million bonus, right?
Mhm.
Like, come on, you don't get a bonus if your company's getting bailed out of bailed out by the government because you've done a crappy job. Okay, like, what I'm saying is we shouldn't be bailing out this, like, maybe we should. I don't know what the I'm no economist, but like, those bailouts shouldn't be going. We shouldn't be bailing those companies out and then having that bailout go into the pockets of the people who caused the bailout to be necessary. Does that make sense? We're like
Yeah, I mean,
spending money.
I don't know anything
I
about
don't know.
how those work, so
I don't
I
know.
really can't like
That
comment.
is fair. I don't know
But
either. It just seems wrong to me. But I don't know anything about it. I should probably shut up about it. Seems like seems like what I'm advocating for here is that the people who have no money should have a little bit more money. And I think that if done in the right way, I don't know what the right way is, but I'm sure there's a way that giving the lower tier of people in the economically the lower tier of people in this country, okay, enough money to live on, like, in a way that's not miserable, would have a lot of great benefits for society in the long run, right? As in, the kids would be happier, they'd be able to raise better kids, right? Raise kids who are going to be able to contribute to society, contribute to your society yourself better, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And, in the short run, it would cost something, yes, but I think in the long run, it would pay off.
well, I think this is. I mean, that's where we disagree. Like, we're not disagreeing that that's a problem. Like, I agree, and I agree on the problem that it is bad that these people don't like they're in a position where they don't have access to certain opportunities, or they don't have
Right.
this kind of power or whatever. Like,
You
I
can't go to
agree
school
on
if you don't have an internet connection right now, right?
yeah, so I like I agree on the problem. I think where we disagree is as we start to move towards a solution, that's when we disagree. Because
Probably.
I think a lot of times, like when you bring up a solution, it's very much like we need to get this money to these people. Whereas for me, when I think about this problem, it's like, hey, we need uh we need to create opportunities for these people or something like that. Not necessarily we need to get
No, that
this
makes
wealth
sense.
to this people. So like I think like a lot of like you're talking about like wealth redistribution. Like I don't think that's the solution here. I think that's
The
a
only reason
very
I talk about wealth
simplistic.
redistribution, and I agree with you that it's perhaps idealistic, but the only thing I talk about with wealth redistribution is I'm not talking about like abolishing the upper class or abolishing wealth. What I'm talking about is, like, over the past like 20 or 30 years, income, like the top 1% has accumulated a ridiculous amount of wealth, right? That they're not really using effectively. And
Hmm.
right, like, I think that's one, bad for the economy, and two, like, right, I mean, because, like, if you redistributed that wealth somewhat, right, you'd have people who are actually using it instead of like sitting in some trust fund or something, right? um like, and yeah, those people invest their money, I get that, but it's still a little bit I don't know. Anyway, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I think that my take on it probably isn't the best because I'm not an economist. I don't know what I'm talking about with this sort of thing.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I
I
admit
don't
that
need
freely.
as soon as you go off like a little bit, I'm just like, all right,
Yeah,
that is something that I do not have the qualifications to
yeah,
comment
I
on.
don't honestly don't either. So I'm gonna say that like I disagree with you, but I'm not qualified to say that you're wrong or that I'm right.
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I'm in the same boat.
so okay, well, yeah. So I don't know how we got a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah,
The
that's fine.
reopening society. Yeah. So I think you know, it had to happen sooner or later, but it will cause more people to die, right? I mean, if the mask mandate just stayed in place for another month or 3 months or X amount of time, okay, year, okay. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying it would have saved lives, right? No two ways about that.
Yeah. Have you seen India? Do you see
Oh,
what's
yes,
happening?
I feel awful over. Yeah, it's
I
awful.
I just checked the numbers before this podcast. It looks like they had the big spike and the graph. Maybe you can comment on this actually because I know you were following the science. It looks like the graph is it's uh
Leveling.
yeah, or it's like turning down now.
Okay, that's really good.
But I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what that
haven't been
means.
following it closely for the last week because, um, unfortunately, I'm very far from the problem, and I've had bigger problems like exams.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. Like, obviously, the people in India are more important than my exams, but I haven't been able to do anything to help them recently. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go study. But I know it's terrible right now. I have heard about that. I have heard there's a massive oxygen shortage in India, and so people are like getting on their ventilators, and then they're just asphyxiating because they don't have any oxygen. Um, which is all of this is terrible. And yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't know. It just seems for India, the recurrent problem is having way too many people. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I was looking at a population graph. I was like, wow, India is just going to pass China in like the next year or two. Like they're really close. Like they're neck and neck now.
Hmm.
And I mean, India's population growth is just so high right now. Like they still have like, oh, gosh, a lot of babies per woman. I can't remember how many, like 3 point something, I think. Hang on, let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
Births per woman, India.
I mean it's got to be something high.
Okay, it's 2.2, so it's not as high as it used to be. But like that, they're still growing because if you look at like the population graph, right? Like they have like no one at the top, right? It's a population pyramid. So like
Mhm.
no one's dying off, and you have like this massive group of young people that's gonna, like keep going up. So like the Indian population is gonna keep rising for like another 50 or 60 years, even if they dip below replacement level. Um, just because like people aren't gonna start dying off as fast as they're being born for a while. But I mean, that being aside, like I think that that's a huge challenge in a country like India, right? Because you have what is it now, 1.4 billion people. Like,
Mhm.
how do you vaccinate 1.4 billion people? How do you hospitalize 1.4 billion people, right? Like, that's so many. You know what I mean? And it seems like India is not a poor country anymore, right? But they have like limited resources. You know what I mean? And so many people to take care of that it's a huge. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of wealth in India and a lot of potential in India. It's just that they have a vast population and limited, like at this point in their development, like it's not like a per capita large amount of development. You know what I mean? I don't
Mhm.
know. Yeah, I'm sure you know more about this than me, but that's just like the ongoing problem I see with like,
No, I only know about it from the news.
yeah,
But I guess to like to even to maybe like further that like do you think because I know like you're talking a lot about it like having to do with like the kind of like the disparity and like development stuff. Do you
yeah.
think with like the US like only being about like third vaccinated, like I mean, do you think the same thing could happen here in like the population that's like unvaccinated, or do you think like we're too far along for that?
So I mean, a few things. America is very developed on a per capita basis compared to India. So
Yeah.
like right now, let's say that I don't know what the per capita infection rate. Do you have any idea what the per capita infection rate is in India
No,
right
no
now?
idea.
Okay. The thing is, like, I don't know a lot about India, but my understanding is there are very undeveloped rural areas and then very urbanized regions that are still large, like somewhat undeveloped, right? Where like people, it's kind of like this huge urban sprawl, right? But it's not necessarily like a it's not like New York City. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just
Oh, I
like
think I think there's like
more like
there's that
Atlanta,
one.
except without as much money or something.
I mean, a lot of the cities are pretty big. I mean, like I'm pretty sure Delhi is technically bigger than New York City,
Oh no,
just
no, I know their
without
cities
the
are huge.
skyscraper.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know, I mean, there are like cities like I know like Mumbai is like if you look up a picture of it, like it has like very like Western architecture, like skyscrapers,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Well, of
So
course,
it's like,
I'm no advocate for Western architecture or Western
yeah.
cities or anything
But
else.
I'm
All
just
I'm
I'm
trying
just
to say,
painting a picture. I'm just
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm just yeah.
No, no, I know it. Like that's what I'm trying to get across here because India is a very complex situation, right? Where like parts of it are pretty much like rural and undeveloped and poor rural undeveloped. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
not like America. You get like the rural areas, and yeah, they don't have as many doctors, but like they could drive to a doctor, and there's going to be like places there, right? Or like America has isolated regions, but they're developed isolated regions, right? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
it's
what I'm trying to say is like there aren't that many places in America that are going to be as medically isolated as a poor village in India. Do you see what I'm saying there? Where like a
mhm.
poor village in India, right? Not one of the areas that's very developed, but like right, if you go to a rural area in Montana, right? Oh, right, you're going to be able to go and get medical care somewhere, right? And you're not going to have an oxygen shortage, right? I mean, the overall number of doctors per person in America is, I would assume, much higher than it is in India. I don't have the stats to back that up, but I would be pretty willing to bet, you know what I mean? And also, like, the number of hospital beds per person is almost certainly much higher in America, right? So that's why I think when we had a spike, we probably didn't have the same sort of fatality rate and the same sort of dystopian, where the medical system just kind of melts down, right? Because it can't, like, I mean, in America, we were fortunate enough that we never got to the point where, we just had way too many people per bed. You know what I mean? Like, there were 3 people for every hospital bed, right? Like we never ran out. You know what I mean? We got really close, and there were some localized places where we ran out, right? Like I remember what was that medical frigate got deployed to New York, right? Because they didn't have enough respirators and all that, right?
Yeah, yeah, like the
But
ship.
but but we shut down and we held it, right? Like there were localized issues, but eventually, by and large, the medical system was able to meet the demands of America, right? I don't think the Indian medical system is able to do the same right now. I think they have, like, I've read articles where, like, you know, they're just going on this quest, like to find medical care for their father or something in India, right? Who has COVID, and like they can't find it, right? They're like having to go all over the place and call all these different people, right? And I read the article in the New York Times about some, like, oh gosh, I forget. I think the person was a doctor or something in America. Forgive me if I'm getting the specifics wrong. Maybe someone in the audience has read it. But you know, it was really, really quite sad to me because, like, this person was like calling in from America to try to get their sick dad to a hospital in India, and they had no control over the situation whatsoever, right? And I can't remember what happened to the father. I think they eventually got a medical care, but they had to look all over for the place, and they were like a wealthy family with means in India, you know what I mean? So they were able to kind of resolve it through their influence or whatnot, right? But like a poor family in India just couldn't do the same thing, right? And they, like, you're not going to be able to get all over the place, and like, anyway, my point is, like, they're clearly it's very sad because there clearly isn't enough of, like, the medical system isn't up to the challenge, and I don't know that any medical system would, but India is a very dense country, and um I think that this will continue for some time because and again, I read the other day, what was it? Someone said, and I really agree with this, social distancing is a privilege, right? That we here in America can kind of do that, right? But in India, I don't know that it's feasible in the same way, right? You see what I'm saying? I
Mm.
don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I think a lot of that makes sense.
we can commute through Zoom, right, to school, whereas maybe a lot of poorer Indian kids don't have access to the internet, so they're not going to commute to school, right? Or people can stay home and work because a lot of people in America are white collar workers, right? And they can do their job remotely, so to speak, right? But then you have people in India who need, like, they need to go into work and do things, right? Like physically do things, and they can't not commute, right? And so that's what I'm trying to say is like I'm not surprised this is happening because there's no way India can just shut down. Like they can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not the way America can because we have a lot more wealth cushion, so to speak, right?
Yeah. No, I mean I think that makes a lot of sense. And also like another thing, which I guess maybe this is a bit unrelated, but it's related to like the
Oh, that's
reopening
fine.
of
Go ahead.
society. So
We're already
I
so
know.
off the beaten track. I don't even remember where the beaten track is.
No, I guess it's technically on the. We'll see. But
You're good.
anyway, so I remember in terms of like you know how people have been able to like remotely work and stuff during the
Yeah.
pandemic. Like it's been possible to do it. Um, I was talking like so what like my roommate like his uncle was here yesterday and like I know
Mhm.
he's like in the whole like software engineering thing in like
Yeah.
Raleigh. And so like I know like he was explaining how like early on like they had like their people go home and like so did all the big companies like Google and Apple. Like, they were like, hey, we're gonna hire remote. This is great. Yeah, people can go and write code and be engineers at home and then just push all their stuff back to our stuff and
Hmm.
it all works. But he said like the issue that they're running into, which I think we can all relate to this, I'm sure we all experience it with everything we're working on, is that like working over Zoom is fine initially, but the problem is that like when real innovation happens, it happens when you have like five people in a room drawing on a whiteboard, like
Right.
arguing over things,
Right.
and or like literally just like you're working on the same project and like even if you aren't talking, you're at the same table, and then someone's like something comes up, and then you can just really quickly be like, hey, you want to check this out, or is this messing up your part of the project or whatever. Whereas like over Zoom, like you would have to set up, a meeting and like, hey, hop on this link. And so people don't do that. And so like he was talking about how like, yeah, it's been fine and dandy using Zoom, but I mean, companies are going to want people back at the office. Like he's like, I don't think this is going to be a trend
I totally agree
over.
with you. I mean, it turns out that human interaction remains pretty important. That's
Yeah.
about all I can say about it. Like, there's nothing. It's something you never think about, right? But like, no technology can replace a handshake. You know what I mean? Or a
Yeah.
hug or anything, right? Or looking someone in the eyes when you make a deal, right? It's right. Human interaction is irreducible and can't be digitized. Um, so I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Hmm.
Really good point. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I did want to cover very briefly why I'm supporting Biden's demascularization. I don't know. What do you call this? The demasking, the great demasking of
We're just
America.
going back. It just
Yeah.
like it's just the thing. It's just like, you know what? Everyone had a fair shot. Everyone has a fair shot right now, but
Go get your shot.
there's no reason to care anymore. It's like everyone's had a choice. Has a choice, right?
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. It's like I think that I th- again I think this will lead to people dying, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, they chose. Like I mean
you
like,
you can go get your vaccine right now, and if you choose to go out in a public area that's crowded with a bunch of unmasked people, and you don't know if they're vaccinated, like, and you get COVID, this seems like you're really asking for it. Like I don't know, it really seems like you are. It seems like you know what the risks are at this point, right? You've accepted the risks in doing this. You're signing off on it, and you have the choice to stay home until you get a vaccine. You know what I mean? At least one. Like at least get one, right? It's not that hard. You don't even get the side effects after one. You get the side effects after the second one. Like if you're like scared because you might feel like you have the flu for a day, okay? Like go and get one vaccine at least, because then you won't land in the hospital, okay?
Yeah, or even if you don't, like it's like it's like you can do that, or guess what? This is America. You can also just not do it, and like it's like for me personally, I don't care what someone else does. Like you don't
No,
want to
I
get the
agree.
vaccine, it's on you. This is America. I'm taking
Yeah,
off my mask because I got it, and I don't need to care anymore
no,
because I know
I
that you've
agree.
had a fair shot at getting it as
That's,
well.
that's what I think. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, and this is one of those things where like I think that the medical the medical and ethic, like it's a matter of ethics, not just strict utilitarianism. You know what I mean? Like utilitarianism wise, maybe as a society we would need to continue wearing masks, but we're not a utilitarian society, right? No one in America is like doing the calculus and thinking like calculus, but I'm just, like no one's adding up, the utils we each get from this or that, right? And deciding what the outcome is, right? We very much live in a society based around ideals and rights, right? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't get to punch you in the face just because I would enjoy punching you in the face more than you would hurt from being punched in the face. You know what I mean?
It's actually an interesting way to look at. That's actually really good. I'm gonna keep that in my head now. I like that example a lot.
That's what it is.
Just changed my perspective.
If let's just say I really wanted to punch you, and I said okay, I would get more out of punching you than you would lose out of getting punched. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't punch that hard anyway. I got these little weenie hands.
Is that like a common, or is that like a, like, is that something you would find in like a philosophy textbook, or is that just like you're
I just
saying
made that up right now? But I mean, maybe I subconsciously stole it from someone. That's always a possibility.
No. I'm just asking because like that seems like a really good way of explaining that principle.
No, and that's the thing. I came into college totally thinking I was a utilitarian, right? And like morality's outdated. And then my professor was like, okay, well, let's say I'm a necro. Like this was just his example in class. The guy's Looney Tunes. I love him. Like one of my favorite professors. His office is just down the hall, so maybe I shouldn't call him Looney Tunes. But he's an awesome professor. But he goes, okay, well that's fun. But what if I'm a necrophiliac and I really want to have sex with your grandma after she's dead? And I was like, what? And he's like, well, it's not hurting anyone. Just look the other way. I really get a lot out of it. So just, don't look. And there's no reason to forbid me from doing that because I'm not hurting anyone. She's already dead. And I'm just going to enjoy it. And I said, okay, I guess I'm not a utilitarian anymore. Because there's nothing wrong with that. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think utilitarianism can make for a lot of very, very ugly outcomes. And one of those, for instance, there's this thing I was going to bring up called apotemnophilia. And I am stealing this from one of my philosophy classes. But apotemnophilia is like, you don't identify with having one of your limbs, right? Quite literally. So like if I were an apotemnophiliac, I would think, okay, look, this right arm is not a part of me. I don't know. It just isn't. Like, that's how those people feel. And like, this is a well-documented thing. It's been studied in depth. And people have done operations to, for instance, remove the person's right arm, right? Because the person is like, I'm going to chop it off or kill myself, one or the other, if you don't chop this thing off, right? And so the doctor's like, okay, well, I guess I should chop it off then, because that would utilitarianly, be better, because then they're not putting themselves in danger or attempting suicide or something because they have this unwanted appendage, right? And to me, that seems like, right, against medical ethics. You know what I mean? Because the medical, I don't know, a doctor is supposed to do the right thing medically. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Like, it seems that, and I actually wrote a paper about this. I can't remember exactly what I said. But it was like, it seemed to me that even if it's life-saving therapy or something, because the person is going to, off themselves if you don't chop off this arm, right? Like, or they're going to try to chop off the arm themselves and they might bleed out or something. But it seems to me that that's not on the doctor, right? The doctor could prescribe them something to take care of their mental symptoms, because I think this is clearly a mental disorder. Or they could put them in therapy or something, right? Or send them to a psych ward to be taken care of or something, right? To make sure they don't do this, right, in the immediate future. But they're not, I don't think that chopping off the limb is providing medical treatment. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of, that's just pretty clear to me. I don't really.
Okay. I mean, people have argued with me about it.
Really? I mean, but
I think I was in the minority by the end of the philosophy class, because I was
really?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think a little bit more than half the class thought they should take the arm off.
Was there what was the argument that was so compelling?
They kind of seemed to take it that the doctor was caring for the patient's mental health and preventing them from like basically treating their mental health disorder by taking the arm off, which I guess has a point. My only issue with that is like it seems like the doctor harming the person physically in order to kind of satiate this totally irrational, off the wall desire of the person is not in line with the doctor's medical duties. You see what I'm saying? Whereas caring for someone's mental health is, right? I think that's an issue for the counselor to address, right? You know what I mean? Like the doctor's not a therapist. The doctor can prescribe medicine, but he's not supposed to like, counsel people on mental health. And it seems like this arm issue would be like in a mental health, like I should go see a psychologist about that. And psychologist doesn't have the authority to chop off my arm, and the doctor doesn't have the authority to chop off my arm to address my mental health issue. So like, I don't quite know where that leaves the doctor, but it doesn't leave him with the right to chop off my arm or the duty to chop off my arm, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'll clarify. I'm agreeing with the duty part. Like, I guess like yeah, I don't know anything about medical ethics, so maybe that's like a separate issue. But
I took
just talking about
I don't think that makes me an expert on it. We just kind of talked about stuff.
Yeah, no, but you've taken the classes and stuff. But I'm saying for me, like I don't understand like the basic principles of that. But like when it just comes to like reasoning through this, like I guess if the person wants it and the doctor's cool with it, like I mean they're fine with doing it. Like they're like for me, like there's one situation where the person wants it and the doctor's fine with it, right? For whatever reason. And then like I feel like, okay, I mean, I guess go ahead. But like if the person wants it and the doctor is like, I don't really want to do this, then I don't think you like a doctor should be forced to do that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
You know what I mean?
They certainly don't have a duty to do it. What I would say is like when I speak about these things in kind of abstract terms, I'm talking about like the ideal doctor, right? Who's like, I want to fulfill my duty as a medical doctor, right? I have no personal feelings. I'm just a philosophical entity, okay? Not like, oh, I would do this surgery, but I don't like blood, okay? Like I'm talking about a doctor who doesn't really have feelings and just wants to carry out the duties of a doctor, right? And do the best possible thing, right? Like whatever the ideal of doctors is, this person will follow it, right? That's kind of like it's kind of like a hypothetical doctor in this scenario. Like, yes, of course, just like different doctors will conduct different operations, right? And we'll go into different fields, right? That's a different thing. I'm sure I don't think anyone would advocate forcing people to amputate people's limbs. I'll be very much against that. That seems like a bad idea for everyone involved. But yeah, so I don't know. I guess that kind of, that's kind of my stance on that, right? Is like I guess this kind of ties back into the personal responsibility thing where like, okay, if you want your arm off, like it's not on the doctor to prevent whatever bad things you're going to do to yourself by taking off your arm. You know what I mean? Like it feels like those bad things that you're going to do to yourself are kind of up to you. If you decide to try to chop off your own arm, like that's not the doctor's fault. You know what I mean? It's not up to the doctor to prevent that. Like just don't try to chop your arm off. Right? I don't know. Anyway, so the Israel-Palestine conflict, right? I think we wanted to talk about that because this is one of those things that I'm pretty clear about. Okay, I think this is right or that's right, and I have an idea here. I just really don't know. I just want to preface everything by saying that I'm seems like a lot of gray area going on here, and I'm very much in like an early stage of forming an opinion. So I don't know.
Yeah, I barely know anything about this, like as well.
Well, you and me both, but my general understanding is that basically, okay, this little strip of land has had, the Israelites came up there from Egypt like 1 million years ago, okay? And they lived there for a while. And then they eventually got pushed out and dispersed throughout Europe and all that. And that's where the Jewish population, like the Jewish diaspora, right, throughout Europe and much of Asia as well. And after World War II, pretty much, I think it was like Britain and America and, the victorious powers after World War II were like, okay, Holocaust was bad. Let's put all the Jewish people in one space so like they can kind of keep an eye on themselves because, we can't just be letting them getting killed like that. You know what I mean? And they need to have like a voice in a nation, so they have a voice, right? And a place they can go to be safe from whoever's persecuting them this century. You know what I mean? Because they had a very long history of persecution, and they figured it would be better if they had a place to be that was their own, right? Their own Jewish state, Zionism, right? And they did push out the people who lived there, which were the Palestinians, right? And the Palestinians were understandably kind of angry about that, and so they kind of stuck the Palestinians in a few like areas, and there was a lot of complicated like, oh, we're going to give you these lands, and they didn't necessarily, and then they kind of took over and occupied those lands, which wasn't good. But the point is, right, as things are right now, you pretty much have a population of Palestinians living in certain areas that are Palestinian, like designated as Palestinian, and then you have like a Palestinian minority in the Israeli state that are like they're kind of second-class citizens there, where like Israeli, or yeah, like I guess Israelis, Jewish people, I don't know what to call them. Israelites kind of go and like, for instance, there's one law that's like, okay, if they can prove they own property before like 1939 in this part of the city, they can go take it back, even if there's like a Palestinian family living there now, right? Things like that. Where it's like, okay, that's kind of weird. It's not a great idea. You can't just kick people out of their homes for no good.
Someone made a TikTok about that, actually. Yeah. Like, it was like the TikTok was it started with like a skit where like the doorbell rings. It's like in America, like the doorbell rings and the person opens the door and it's like someone else. They're like, hey, we lived here about 100 years ago in this house, and we're kicking you out. And the guy who's inside, he's like, excuse me, what? He's like, yeah, we are moving back into this house. We're not paying you anything. You got to leave.
Yeah.
And then he went into explaining. Ridiculous.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's a pretty bad law. And I mean, I think that Israel is pretty nationalist as a country, and I can kind of see why. Because, right, like they wanted a national state first, like they wanted an Israelite state for so long, and now they've got it, right? And a lot of people want to take it away from them. So like they're a little bit reactionary here, right? Where like they were like, oh, we want it for like 1,000 years, and then they're finally giving it to them, right? And then they have this thing that they've wanted for so bad, and they have like a national identity, and they can, any Jew from all over the world can come and join them, right? And it's awesome. But people all around them want to take it away from them, right? They want to kick them out and make them go back and being a diaspora, okay, of people gradually dissolving in whatever culture they're in. And like, I'm very sympathetic to that. You know what I mean? I don't think Jewish people can exist in the same way that they can exist in Israel, anywhere other place in the world. Right? Like if you move I've had Jewish friends in America, and like, yeah, they're Jewish, but like they're not Israeli. You know what I mean? Like they don't have that culture. They you see what I'm saying?
It's like its own thing. It's not necessarily tied to the religion.
Right. They have a culture that they can't really celebrate anywhere else in the same way, right? And right, I don't know. I mean, I'm Greek, and I'm not that Greek in America, but my relatives are a heck of a lot more Greek than I am in Greece. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of what's going on here. Is like, what if there wasn't a Greece, right? Like, damn, Greek culture would probably kind of die out, wouldn't it? Like, because I'm not practicing it that actively, okay?
Yeah, I have a side note for you. There's like this this is connected to Greece. This is where I'm going with this. There's a YouTuber named Eric. And he, like, back in 2020, he had like a goal where he was going to prove it's still possible to make it as a creator in 2020. So he went from like a few hundred subscribers to 1 million subscribers in 2020, and his videos are like really good and stuff. But anyway, there's a guy who got into his videos named Phidias, and Phidias is this guy from Cyprus. He has like 30,000 subscribers now, but the way that he made it as a YouTuber, the way he got in LA is like, he made a challenge video where he came to America and with like this goal of giving a gift to Iraq, and he got Iraq's videos, and he just acts all crazy and stuff. But anyway, I was just gonna say that to say that now the Greek Cyprus community has some representation and on
There you
YouTube
go.
because he's
Yeah, Greek
actually.
Cypriots are interesting. There's a whole situation going on over there.
Oh,
And
really?
that's another whole like whose land is it and stuff question where like literally like pretty much Greece occupies half the island and Turkey occupies half the island. And
Mm.
it's a very strange situation. Anyway,
Dude, it also
and then
I
Britain's
don't
like
wanna,
hanging out on one corner too. Britain's like, oh yeah, hey guys, we're here. Don't mind us.
yeah, but I don't want to get off that topic just yet. I had one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the another thing too I was gonna throw in on this whole issue of like land and like
Mhm.
nations existing within states was like I remember my junior year of high school. I was what did we take? Was a history class, like AP American history. Is that it? US or AP US history.
Yeah, we took
Yeah.
it. Uh-huh.
So I remember like in A push. Okay. Yeah. So in A push, I remember there was one day where like Dr. I can't say his name, but there was one day where like he had a thing where like we took three different arguments from like black activists in the 19th century for how we should solve racism moving forward. And then the class was divided into three groups and we had to argue. I remember my group had an argument where it was like we need to like the guy was basically arguing in the 19th century that we need to create a nation within America for black people
Mhm.
because there's his whole argument was that there's no way that white and black people are going to coexist, so let's give black people their own nation and let white people have the actual state of like America. And I remember like I literally couldn't argue it. Like I remember I went up to like I was the person who was going to go to the front of the class and like do the whole thing. And I remember I went up there and then when we were getting like questioned, like someone was like, how would that even work? And I was like, yeah, it'd probably be like Israel and Palestine. And then I remember, Dr. I would call him Dr. E because I can't say his whole name, obviously. But Dr. E was like, yeah, but they have a lot of conflict. And I was like, yeah, that's why this is a stupid ass argument. Like I've said like 10 times, I don't agree with this. Like, I mean, it doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
you can't just
No, I 100%
ethnically
agree.
separate everyone.
No, that's a stupid idea. And I want to say that also, like, I mean, black people in America have never been their own state in the same way that Jewish people were at one point, right? Like
That's true.
black people in America came from a wide variety of African cultures, right, to begin with, and then they all got kind of smushed together in a very unfair system in America and kind of developed an ethnicity out of that. But like, they've never existed in their own state. I don't know that they need to exist in their own state. I think they do fine as it is, if that makes sense. I don't know. Seems like black culture
These
is fine in America right now. I don't know.
yeah, well no, these were arguments from like the 19th
Yeah.
century or
No, yeah. I know.
19th or 20th. I can't remember.
I don't know. 19th would be like, please don't enslave us, because that was kind of the big issue at the
Yeah,
time.
isn't that's when they got
Kind of in the
freed, right?
20th century, because 19th century, that seems a little bit forward thinking, unless it was like 1890s or something. Because the main goal of like most black activists in the 1800s was just, hey guys, maybe don't enslave us. That would be good. Thanks. Yeah, but so back to the I think that the ethnically separated states are a really bad idea. I totally agree with you. Like in general, I think that your example there is kind of a counter example to what is trying to happen in Israel here, which is like, oh yeah, we'll just stick all the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and that's fine. And I'm like, no, this is not going to work. Okay, this is not going to work at all. At the same time, there's the question of Israeli national security, right? Which, right, I mean, they're quite literally kind of an enclave, right, in a lot of countries that are pretty hostile to them, right? I mean, very, very openly hostile towards them, historically, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that the Iranian leaders and stuff regularly say death to America and death to Israel, or at least they used to. I know they still say death to America. I don't know about death to Israel, but a lot of them,
Really?
let's just say that, yeah, they're not like, let me see, hang on. I won't look it up right now. I probably should have looked this up earlier, but like, let's just say that the sentiment in that area varies from aggressively indifferent, if that makes sense, to aggressively aggressive. And Israeli national security is kind of an area of immediate concern for them, right? Um, and I don't blame them. I mean, as a people, again, who just got out of the Holocaust, they probably don't want to be taken over by a hostile foreign power and have nothing to say in the fate of their people again, right? That's very fair. So I mean, they need to be able to defend themselves, and I think that honestly, I kind of Biden pretty much said the same thing. He was like, he didn't say anything about the conflict. He was like, Israel has a right to defend itself. That's all I'm going to say. And that I feel very much with that. At the same time, they don't just have a right to oppress people wantonly, right? And that's kind of what they're doing right now. I don't know. It's a very complicated situation because Palestinians clearly have a claim on the land, but Israel can't really exist anywhere else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's how I see it.
But I mean, yeah. No, it's definitely like a really complicated issue. And have you seen like video of the actual like the bombing and stuff? Like, did you see the?
Yeah, I've seen some videos. I've seen like I know Hamas. I don't know if do they count as terrorists? I don't even know. I know they're a militant group, a paragovernmental militant group. I don't know if they meet the terrorist definition or not. But they were like firing rockets into the Israeli cities, and then the Israelis did airstrikes, right? And they blocked the rockets or something. They had some sort of anti-rocket.
They also took down. They showed there's that popular video that they show where they took down. Also, I think there might be.
They burned a mosque. Didn't they burn a mosque or something? I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, there was something like that, but they also.
I saw some video on Reddit that was like they were burning a mosque. I was like, I don't know what business y'all have burning a mosque, but you probably don't. There's probably no good reason for this.
I think there might be a delay in our connections, but I'm gonna try.
Okay, go ahead.
But no, you're fine. I literally just realized that because something seemed off, and then like it just hit me because I heard my voice on your end come back later, and I was like,
that's fine.
All right. But anyway, I was just gonna say like there's the other the one too where like the Israelis retaliated, and there was like I think it's the tallest building in Gaza. Like they took it down. Like they made phone calls to everyone who lived inside. They called all the people living around it. And they were like, yeah, please get out of the area because we're gonna bomb it. And then with like 3 missiles, the whole thing came down.
Well, it's a good thing they called first. That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what they're trying to do there is show superiority, right? Over the militants there. I mean, they clearly have it. And the only problem I have with that is like it seems like they're going to end up having the effect they don't want to have, which is they're going to radicalize everyone who lives there. Having your house blown up or whatever is not a good message from another government. It's a really good way to instill hate. Is just blowing up someone's house as a kid or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
My problem here, like this is the issue I have with this is I think that Palestinian people are going to have a vested interest in overthrowing the Israeli government, and overthrowing the Israeli government is quite likely to have disastrous consequences for Israelite people. I don't know if it's the right denominator or not. But right, because again, they're in a hostile area that really doesn't want their culture to exist, and in that region at least, right? And so that's the only I personally I think there needs to be obviously a two nationality state. I think Palestinians and Israelis need to coexist in Israel. And at the same time, as long as the Palestinians remain sort of hostile to and have interests in getting rid of the government and, like no longer having a Jewish state there, it seems like the Israelis need to have enough power to activate the defense mechanisms of the state pretty unilaterally. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, like the Palestinians could just be like, oh, okay, well, is Egypt wants to invade? Okay, cool. Come on in, Egypt. Like that's fine with me. Okay, like whatever. And then you can't like defend yourself, right? Because if there's checks and balances that prevent the military from being activated, then they're not going to be able to do anything about it. So I guess my point here is like it seems like the hostility in the situation makes it so that um it's a significant barrier to a two-state solution. Let's put it that way. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or
and
to
I
a
mean
to
that
a
makes
single state
sense.
solution. Excuse me, to a single state solution. So like obviously a single state solution is what needs to happen, but I don't know if it'll work.
I think it all just goes back to like it's just such a complicated situation that like it's just tough to know know
Yeah.
what the right thing is or not, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. You know, it this is a much different issue, but it reminds me a little bit of I was having this discussion with my friend. He's a history major, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, you know, historically speaking, Eastern Turkey and Constantinople should be owned by Greece." And I was like, "Yeah, it should be." And a lot of people there still speak Greek. I've been, and a lot of them are like half Greek, half Turkish, right? There's still a lot of even after the genocides and stuff Turkey carried out in the early 20th century. There's still a lot of Greek people living there. But the problem is Istanbul. Now that so you see the issue here. But Istanbul now has a larger population than Greece. So it seems like they can't really claim that it's theirs anymore because, you know, they're kind of like small. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird situation. So that was kind of my point. I was like, yeah, like you're right. Historically speaking, they're Greek territories, but like they're not anymore because
Yeah.
there aren't that many Greeks anymore, and there are a
I
lot
mean,
more. There are a lot more people living in Turkey. It seems like they want it out. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean,
They have a liver.
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like the that like land disputes are just a really common problem in the world. Like,
Definitely.
there's land disputes everywhere. It's the same thing like with India and Pakistan. Like there's like a region called like Kashmir.
Yeah, I've heard
Like
about
there's
that.
been a war going on for a while over that.
Yeah, are they technically still at war?
I don't know if it's like official, but I know that like Pakistan and China both hate India.
Oh, okay.
So I know they're constantly
Yeah,
so
I've
like
heard that.
people get shot at the border.
Yeah,
Like it's like I know it's an issue.
yeah, I've heard about like Chinese and Indian officials or troops clashing and stuff before. That's really wild. I mean, the good news is I don't know what China would do if they fought India. Like, what are you gonna gain from that? You know what I mean? It seems like you would
Yeah,
just like maybe you would beat India and then leave. Like you're not gonna take India over. It's not gonna work. Um,
yeah,
too many Indians there. Okay, like it's not gonna happen. I think China's military is stronger. I just don't think it would matter. I don't think they have the, you know, there's no danger of, you know, um, I don't know. It's all very interesting. Um, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that Pakistan hates India. I don't know how that happened. Like
it's because
they were
it's
incorporated in the British Raj together for like a million years, right? Like just kind of
yeah. Well,
strange.
The British is who made the two countries.
Yeah, I know, but it's just kind of strange that like they ended up hating each other after they were literally united for so long. It's weird.
Yeah, but it
I can
didn't
see
used
the
to be
big
like that
conflict.
region used to be something else, and then the British were like, all right, we're gonna put all the the Muslims up here, and then
Uh,
everyone else go
hmm,
to this place called that we're gonna call India.
gotcha. That's really strange.
Or yeah,
Hmm. And then you had Bangladesh too, right? Which
yeah.
is
I don't
Muslim
that I
over
think
there. I think
yeah,
that's a Muslim state, isn't it? Wasn't that the point? I don't
it
know.
is. Yeah.
But then there's still plenty of Muslims living in India, and
There's I
then
mean there's everything living
I've seen a bunch of
in
videos
India.
on Reddit too, where like, I mean, either Muslim crowd beats Hindu man, or Hindu crowd beats Muslim man, and I've seen both. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a lot of religious tension going on there.
Yeah. I mean I think that's like all over the world. It's just a
Uh,
lot.
I mean, yeah, I guess you're right.
That's hey, this I want to mention this on the podcast, so maybe this will give people something to look forward to.
Yeah,
Maybe something to check out if anything, like just for fun, but maybe for like a future podcast idea.
yeah.
And like, if anyone's watching, I also recommend just checking this out. There's a debate between Bill Nye and Ken Ham, and Ken Ham,
Him.
he is the president of I can't remember, some Christian organization, but anyway,
Oh boy.
he
I always say when
advocates.
they're like, "Oh yeah, I stand for the Christians," and I'm like, "You're an idiot."
No. He represents the community of Christians who like believe that Genesis is like an actual scientific historical account. And they have like PhD scientists on their team who went to like these like top schools who like he has them in the debate saying, I believe the earth is 4,000 years old and stuff. And like then you have Bill Nye in the room full of like all these people. Like it's a good, I would check it out. And there's a follow up where Ken Ham invites Bill. So Ken Ham, his company made this big museum. It's in Northern Kentucky called the Ark. It's $100 million museum that's actually in a financial hole. Like someone, like the news made like a thing about it where like they told the town it was going to bring them money. So they tried to chip in, but then it didn't bring anything to the town. And like less people show up to it than expected, but it's a
What was this
life
thing called? The
size.
Ark?
Yeah, it's a life-size replica of that like Noah's Ark, except it's made with like steel brackets and concrete, and they just put wood over it. Um, but like and inside it has exhibits. But like if you watch the walkthrough after the debate where Bill Nye goes and he's walking around, they start with exhibits, and like the first one Bill Nye goes to, he's like, see, this is the reason I have a problem with this, because there's exhibits about how climate change isn't real because the Earth's only 6,000 years old or whatever. So there was only one ice age, and this like heating and cooling cycle we're seeing, it's like totally natural. Like this is just how the Earth's worked, and like there's problems like that come up. So I that just popped into my head like because of what we were saying. But
Yeah.
I would highly recommend watching the debate and the walkthrough because it's like very interesting, like philosophical kind of stuff going on there.
All I can say, dude, is like as a Christian, I got no respect for that guy at all.
Yeah. Well, that's what Bill
That's
Nye
just so
said too.
stupid.
He said like I have like, a lot of colleagues over the world who believe in all different kinds of religions, and like none of them, believe this. So like
No,
he like
like
the whole time like Bill
no.
Nye kept saying like this is like Ken Ham kept saying like this is God's word, this is the truth, this is the real model of how the universe works. And Bill Nye kept calling it Ken Ham's model because he's like, I have Christian colleagues and colleagues of all
Yeah,
religions who
no,
don't.
he's just downright wrong to say that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I there was a really famous debate, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. We can call it after this, but there was between like Einstein and I think it was Schrodinger who like basically came up with quantum physics, right? And Einstein was like, you can't, God doesn't play dice, God, because basically the dispute was like, okay, in quantum physics everything's random. And Einstein wanted everything to be deterministic. He wanted like one thing to cause the next thing, cause the next thing, cause the next thing. And in quantum physics, one thing has, affects the probabilities of the next things, which affect the probabilities of the next things, right? But it's all probabilistic, right? In fact, there was a problem in my quantum physics class this year that was, what is the probability that if you have a can of beer, that a quantum perturbation makes it fall over randomly while it's just sitting there? And there was a probability for that, like very, very small, but like it took like 10 to the 10th to the 70th years or something. So basically infinite time. But after that infinite quantity of time, the beer can would eventually fall over because a quantum particle randomly like smashed into the side and knocked it over. It's really interesting, but that's how quantum physics work. It's not deterministic, it's random. I mean, it's probabilistic, not random, but probabilistically determined, right? And Einstein was like, oh, you're wrong. God doesn't play dice. And Schrodinger was like, don't tell God what to do, dude. And that's kind of my position on it all, is like anyone who's like, oh, this is God's truth. And I'm like, oh, really? Did he tell you? Did he take you up to heaven and show you? Because if not, I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me what God does. Don't tell God what to do. God does what God wants to do. You know what I mean? Like, so all these Christian scientists who are like, oh, the earth is 6,000 years old. That's what it says in the Bible. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool and all, but God didn't write the Bible in front of me.
Yeah, no, and that's the whole argument. Like Ken Ham, like you see, he tries to break it into like observational science and historical science, and he's like, we weren't there to absorb the past, and then like Bill Nye's like, well, we have like radioactive dating, and then Ken Ham is like, well, were you there to see like the whatever turn into the what, like the rubidium turn into the whatever it turns into, and then Bill Nye's like, no, but we're seeing this in the press, like we're seeing this now. And he's like, well, how do you know the same things applied? And like, and
Because
Bill, like, yeah, the whole debate, Bill Nye is like, look, my model that I thought that the whole scientific world follows can predict things. He's like, what has your, like, he's like, don't just give me an explanation of the past using science. He's like, what has your model actually predicted? And then Ken Ham keeps saying, hey, you weren't there to see it, so how do you know what happened? It's a good debate. I would watch it. It's like it's interesting.
He doesn't sound like much of a scientist, because that's not really the point of science. Anyway,
Yeah.
Anyway, that was an interesting conversation. As always, you want to take us out?
Yeah.
That's my job first. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening in. We had a great time talking about a lot of kind of random stuff today, but I think it was a good time. There wasn't really a lot of we kind of beat around the topics a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about
we got what we had to get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We talked about, should society be reopening right now? And I think the answer was pretty resoundingly, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then, personal responsibility is a thing, and we both seem to believe in it, which is good, I think. And then the Israel-Palestine conflict was like, wow, okay, well, this is really complicated. And it seems like both people have a really good claim on what's going on here. And I think that just overall tamping down the hate is what needs to happen. Because I think coexistence is the way forward, but I don't know how to make that happen. It's one thing to tell people don't hate each other, and it's another thing for like those people to actually not hate each other. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to grab all of your masks that you no longer need and absolutely smash that like button with them. And if you like what you hear, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way, every time we post a video on Sundays at 9:30 a.m., you just get a notification. You can click on it. It takes you straight to the episode, and then you can listen to it in the background while you cook, clean, drive, or whatever. And with that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.